Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the new Being Hypnosis channel. My name is Troy J. Bacon, and I am a certified hypnotherapist and certified Reiki practitioner. I live in Seattle, Washington, and my website is newbeinghypnosis.com, and the same name as this channel. Today, I'm joined by Derrick Ivey, and our main topics of today. By the way, Derrick is also a hypnotherapist and Reiki healer, master teacher too. And today our topics are about the ego, like the human ego and that voice in your head. And I think most people can relate to that, and what that's like, and also how to become more aware of that and change that, and eventually learn to reprogram that. And I think that will dovetail too into the other topic I want to talk about, which is answering your callings, and why that's important and what that is. So go ahead, Derrick.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect topic that we're heading into today about, the ego. The ego is a defense mechanism of sorts. It is there to help us avoid pain, to seek pleasure. It has the energy that, it's there to help us. We're gonna have an ego as long as we're in these bodies. But is that really all? Is that who we really are essentially? No. What who we are essentially is our soul. And our soul signed into these bodies for a purpose, and that is to fulfill our wider life purpose. So that's why I feel that these two topics they couldn't be better to put together. Like, how does it get any better than that?
Yeah, and really are yeah, these two topics are kind of like the purpose of why we're here, like they go to the relate to the very core of why we're here. And so first I'll start talking about the ego. And of course, I think we can all relate to it to some degree. I think the majority of people probably aren't even aware of it. Um, a lot of people will say that they don't even have an ego, and um, having an ego doesn't mean that you're selfish. Actually, I've learned that the ego is kind of an essential part of who we are as humans, and it can, it's really just sort of the identity, the individuated identity of who we are in a body in this life, and also how we behave. Um, so there's that function of it that I don't think anyone should get rid of, is just sort of how they are in this life, and that can be accepted and integrated with. But then there's this other part of the kind of like ego mask that I've become more aware of, and actually a woman, I don't remember her name. Um, she goes to something called Miwi fairs in the greater Seattle area in Northwest, where I've been,
Right, I've been to that.
yeah. Um, a lot of people go, a lot of the vendors are regulars, but this one woman there I've seen before. She does these free reflection readings, and she did one for me, and it was quite, I can say, insightful and like an awakening experience. And she was reflecting back to me this kind of like desire of my ego mask, basically, that I wasn't even fully aware of. but it was true. Um, and I've been working on that since. But yeah, she reflected back to me this constant behavior and desire for me to be seen and for me to be seen by everybody. And I wasn't fully aware of it until then, but that was also part of how I was behaving at the fairs I've been going to, is wanting to be seen by everybody, but then being seen by almost nobody there. People literally just walk by and they act like I literally am not there. And sometimes it's astonishing to me, but I've learned that actually is at that fair too, that I helped learn this lesson more. Um, that my energy is not for everyone, and that's I think
Right.
the thing. And so I want to be acknowledged, and I think a lot of that desire for acknowledgement and being seen for what I am and what I have and what I can offer to really goes back into my childhood and a lot of my past about being rejected and being just not being accepted or not being seen by people. And so that's normal. That's not something, I think that's normal for a lot of people. It's probably a little different for everyone. I know that everyone has a slightly different like ego theme, I think you could call it, of how they are constantly trying to come across to people. Um, but it's not usually a functional and helpful way. And so, yeah, my energy is not for everyone, but I've learned that what happens, the reason why it happens is that there are only a select few who show up and approach me.
Hmm.
Okay, too. And that's kind of like a double-edged sword, but
It's just like, a magnet. If it's the wrong type of magnet, it's gonna repel instead of like magnetize. So that's the same way with how we all are as human beings, is we have this magnetism that the more magnetic you are to those that are meant for your message at this time, or whatever you're doing in life, um, it's gonna repel away a lot of others that it doesn't resonate with. And really, that's fine, because it's gonna be a more magnetic pull to those who are truly meant and ready for it, and that they're in the right place to receive.
yeah, definitely. Um, so yeah, there's that part of the ego that I think is natural for everyone. And I've also been awakening to it. Again, as I've been reading the Surrender Experiment gradually, and um, Michael Singer in that also describes how he was teaching meditation classes a lot, and a lot of people he worked with easily and quickly understood that idea of this voice in their head or wherever it is. It's often in the brain or in the mind somewhere, um, that is just constantly begging for attention, begging for fulfillment of some sort, and wanting to wear certain clothes to be seen, wanting to um, like feeling this drive to do something, to accomplish something, or put something out there to be seen, or to like make trouble to get attention, even is I think one of the lower forms of it. Um, and so yeah, it's there's nothing wrong with that. It's just how people are, but it's also something to work with. And as I've been becoming more aware of that in myself, I've also noticed changes as I've been doing work on myself and healing with self-hypnosis and other healings, um, that I feel like that ego voice, as I've become aware of it, also been integrating with the real truth of my soul more recently. Which is also kind of a complex thing to describe, but yeah, integrating with more of my authentic soul essence, that ego has become more laid back, just more at ease too. And I feel that's something that can be reprogrammed probably for everybody, if they wish to integrate with their soul in that ego mechanism way of being, so then they can become more fully aware of the experiencer, or as an experiencer of the ego, instead of being the ego, but taking a step back to experience that and to become like the actual watcher and experiencer of life, which Deepak Chopra originally taught me how to do when I met him once, a long time ago. And so that's a quite helpful tool if anybody's struggling with that type of identity or identity issue. I can always work with people. I'm sure Derrick can too. Yeah, so there's that ego, and I think now I can talk about more of answering the calling and your soul's calling, and what that is. And I used to have a book I read a number of years ago. I think I passed it on to somebody or donated it or something. It's called, I think it was just called A Calling, or the Calling. It was a pretty much plain white cover with golden letters on it, and it was a spiritual book. I think it was channeled. But it was this book of kind of like divine wisdom, and pretty sure it was channeled information about how to answer your calling. And I think a lot of people use that term, that something is their calling and that they found their calling in life, but not a lot of people, like, you can answer that and that's fine and that still works however you do it, if you're a spiritual or not. I think a lot of people don't fully understand that, though, what that actually is. And the way I would describe a calling is like, it's often related to your soul contracts, I think, and what you've agreed to do. But it's usually like a deeper sort of voice, often in like your heart area, you might feel, or also sometimes I hear and feel my callings when I'm going for a walk, or even sometimes doing the dishes, something repetitive that I'm not always fully focused on, but my mind,
Gets you into that trance state.
yeah, kind of like a light hypnosis state while I'm awake too. Um, and so I think that's a common way for a calling to come through and become much more um, obvious. But then sometimes people lose sight of that or awareness of that when they snap out of it or actually do something else that they're more aware of. So callings come from the soul, which part of is rooted in the heart itself, the heart center. Also, callings come from sometimes spirit beings themselves, just other beings around you or working with you. Sometimes your spirit guides. Um, yeah, but then sometimes our egos, when they're not developed, not educated with the soul, then it's so easy for the ego to ignore the calling that keeps coming up. But the thing about a calling is that it won't stop. It won't go away until you actually acknowledge it and follow through with it.
And what do you think is the main reason that people are not following their callings. I think a lot of it is our culture.
I would agree exactly. And yeah, my answer to that question would be more in the words of conditioning. But yeah, pretty much our culture and how we're brought up and conditioned to behave, and specific ways of us always wanting to think about money, always trying to get something done, being committed to a company or a job, and basically not having
Which that's draining.
yeah, exactly. And I don't think that's a
And
healthy.
going to a job every day for 40 years, you're not probably going to be doing your calling. And it's sad that that's encouraged in our society.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's sad too. And that's something I've um, been breaking out of and have broken out of is this going to a job just to waste my time, um, or what I think of as a waste of time when I'm not actually doing the work I want to be doing. It's purposeful and inspiring, and really turns up the the fire in me, and that I really get animated about. Um, yeah, it is mostly about our culture and what other people are demanding of us. And I will say also that living in something like a capitalist country, or even communist or maybe socialist, I think there's always this structure of needing money and going out and uh, often originally working with a company or doing something for money, which
Right.
and there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't think that that should be getting in the way of a person's calling. And for me, for a long time, I've been answering my callings kind of like on the side, in addition to working for other companies. Um, and that's fine for a while too, if that's how you need to do it. But eventually, I think the real purpose of life is to get to this point of really getting grounded in your calling, doing it so much that it becomes you because it is you and it's your purpose. Um, we're not, our souls and us as souls didn't choose to incarnate again into the bodies we have currently just so that we can basically be enslaved into this system of devoting all of our time, energy, and resources to trying to produce things for their companies or get something done for their companies. That's not our calling. We came here as souls and chose to be here, some of us for our karma, and to finish that and learn lessons from that instead of repeating it again, and not learning from it. Some of us came here even as very clear and high vibrational and powerful souls. Um, there's a lot of different types of souls on this planet, but yeah, some souls came here as beings of light, beings from other dimensions, to bring in our energy, to bring in our teachings and our creativity, to bring in our guidance and wisdom, to actually make that our calling, make that our life. And that can be more than just a little thing. It can be more than just blogging or little bits of writing. It can also become big. I believe that a calling, if you're ready for it and truly ready to embrace it, can become a really big thing. Going out and creating a company, going out and creating a nonprofit, um, maybe even a company and a nonprofit, and writing books and making videos and whatever else it is. Or it can be also just working with other people, if that's your capacity, working with animals. Um, Or
Now, something came up while you were talking,
yeah, go ahead.
and my thought was, what should people do if they find themselves trapped in a 9 to 5? They know their calling is more, but they're still identified with fear of stepping out on their own trajectory. Um, I think that it's fear that keeps a lot of people trapped in that matrix, and the magics and the work that you're avoiding
Mm-hmm.
towards what calls you. What are your thoughts on that? What would you kind of suggest for people to step out of that fear matrix? And I was the same way before. I actually am so grateful that I got in a huge fight with, well, this, I worked at a really bad failing radiology practice, and the manager screamed at me because I had to go get a dental crown glued back in. Otherwise, I probably would have stayed with the company, but I was like already up to here. And then I was just like, F you guys, I'm out of here. And then I started my business, and I feel like that's more in alignment with my calling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would not describe it much differently about how to answer it or how to start answering it and why people don't and often don't follow their soul's calling. Um, yeah, truly it is fear that really blocks us from just about everything, answering our calling. Um,
It
fear,
was something I had wanted to do for a long time before I finally did it. And then when I finally did it, it was like it had just happened because it was a byproduct of all the work I'd done on myself. So that's why it's like the more I transcended the ego, the closer I got, the more I was present with what was right here.
yeah, um, yeah, definitely breaking through fears is essential. You can't live with fear. It's not a way of life to be living in a fearful state, whatever you're doing. And I want to share this. One of my favorite definitions of fear is false evidence appearing real.
Hearing real.
And yeah, it's all false. Fear is a
So
false.
it can mean either F everything and run, or face everything and
Right.
recover.
Yeah, either one of
What
those.
was the one you said? Uh, false evidence appearing real.
Yeah,
That's a good one too. I Fear is a hard one.
it
It it can come in and totally alter your day, which alters your life outcome
yeah.
in these bodies.
Um, but just like in my big remembrance in a hypnotherapy session yesterday that um my alien family, Gray family, um helped me remember that it's the fears and what is it? Fears and doubts, especially that block me and block my subconscious and memory and um that also applies to everyone. I think fear blocks people from doing things, from remembering well. And yeah, it's a big thing. It can manifest in different ways, but definitely answering the calling, your soul's calling starts with breaking through your fears, identifying them, what you're really afraid of. Like it might not even be something you've always been afraid of, but something you're just repeating and that you haven't broken through. Um, I recommend if you truly want to follow your calling, maybe write out, lay out, identify what your fears are, what's blocking you, and also take some time to become clear about what your calling is. And then when you feel ready, or even now, if you're daring enough, just take a risk, um, throw away everything that you're afraid of that is truly feeding your fear and that you're engaging with fear, and just go do your calling. Or if you're working a job, like a 9 to 5 job that is taking up a lot of your time, but not truly in alignment with your calling and not truly what you want to be doing with your life, then, and you're not willing to leave the job yet, and you want to do this while keeping the job, that's fine too. You can always start working on your calling, start planning on it.
Right.
For
Mm-hmm.
my callings, one of them is my novel trilogy I'm working on. Um, and there'll be other books after that, I know. Um, my autobiography I'm working on, first part of it. And what else? Um, one pro one ongoing project I'm working on is helping rebuild an orphanage in Uganda. So that's a charity project that's become one of my callings. Um, it actually took me a while
Mm-hmm.
to understand that and accept that and get into that role. But it is now. And so that's one thing I'm not giving up on. And yeah, your calling can be a creative project. For example, like when I was doing my starting to write my novel, I actually started it right before I graduated from high school. And that was actually after I think it was the second time after I met and held Einstein the Crystal Skull, a large 33-pound
Mm-hmm.
ball. And so that helped, just that energy gave me like an integration and helped me get clear
Oh
on
yeah.
the energy of the book I'm supposed to be writing. And I took breaks in college, kind of put it on ice, and then came back to it after college, but it was always there. It never left, no matter how long I went without writing it. Um, I could always return to it. And that's what a calling is.
Mhm.
You can always return to.
And it literally calls you
Uh,
to come back to it. Like that was kind of when I first started my business. I resisted it and I was like, I don't want to do this. I just want to work and survive. And then I kept being called back to it. And now my practice today is very full.
mhm.
Um, Also, my another one of my calling is art, like drawing and writing psychological thrillers.
Mhm.
So that's one thing we have in common with our calling is somehow to help other people, and also they can be helped through the essence of writing as well.
Yeah, definitely. So again, from my book, even when I was later on after college, after I was working originally at a Whole Foods store, um, and that honestly was a horrible experience for me back then.
Were
Um,
you a cashier or
I was a little bit of everything. I did some cashiering. Most of the time I ended up working in the prepared foods kitchen, and sometimes I was in seafood and meat. Sometimes I was in grocery and other places. Um, yeah, it was a little bit of everything, but I'll say that grocery work is just not what I'm cut out for. A lot of it's extremely physically strenuous. You're on your feet on a concrete floor
Mhm.
all day. A lot of jobs there have you lifting and bending and twisting all the time, and on top of that, also helping customers. It's a lot. It's not for everyone. I honestly think it's for superhumans to be able to accomplish all of that and live that way. Um,
I used to work at a grocery store too. So yeah, I definitely, that was a great showing me that's not what you want to do,
yeah,
which we need that. We need that direction of what we don't want so we can be called to what we do want.
exactly.
And I would be in these meditative states for like 4 to 6 hours before work because I wouldn't go into work till like 3 p.m. By the time I would get to the store, I couldn't handle the vibration change because I was in these really high meditative states, perfect calm, bliss. And then I would go into that very public environment and I would feel everyone's energy
Yeah.
like so hardcore. So that's another reason I'm glad that I've followed my calling in life because it's in vibrational resonance with me. So that means I have less situations that are pointing me out of what I'm doing
Hmm.
because I'm in resonance a lot of the time. I still have time periods where I'm in a weird place, whatever, but it's more few and far between now.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Yeah, when I was at Whole Foods too, I got to a point after college when I realized that my body was hurting and I needed help and deeper healing with a lot of things. And so I went to an integrative yoga school and started taking classes there regularly. And I would always feel so good doing that yoga, um, doing the yoga classes before work. And um, that was good. But what I realized after a while is that the yoga was really good by itself, but then basically the benefits and energy of that would pretty much just be wiped away with all the dread of having to go back to work at the place I didn't want to be at. And
Right.
yeah, that was drawing me away from what I wanted to do, which I've learned ultimately is teaching. And um, teaching
And
was,
also, it's like, you know, it's a lesson in just acceptance too. If you are in a situation like that, it's not going to be like that forever.
yeah,
There's going to be changes and you can, like Troy said, you can start on your calling outside of work and then you can build that, expand that, and know that you're not in your situation. It's not your end all be all.
yeah, exactly. While I was working at Whole Foods, I got back into working with my novel. I realized it was a form of creative channeling for me, and there was just something highly intelligent guiding it too. Maybe it was part of my subconscious intelligence, but yeah, the
Yeah,
great wisdom and great stuff that was coming through with the novel. Um, it has still taken me years to really get to a point of trying to publish it now in the publishing process. But yeah, it's one of those things answering a calling sometimes, especially a big project like a book, um, that sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes it takes years to finish something like that. At the same time, if you want to do something like teaching, um, or something else, sometimes you only need to do like a year or two of some schooling while you're working, and then you can just leave that other job and switch over more easily,
mhm,
doing something like teaching or nursing or something else. Whatever
totally.
Yeah, you can definitely get there. One thing I can say about a calling is that life, the universe, God, the spirits around you, whatever you believe in, and everything always conspires to help you and
Yeah,
always wants to get you to your destiny. Your destiny is not something that can just be wiped away and ignored and negated by um, working at a horrible job. It's your destiny is something that you'll get to no matter what. Whether it's
absolutely.
destiny is kind of like the positive, um, what is it? Kind of like the positive highest aspect, kind of in opposition to karma, negative karma anyway. Karma is something that a lesson that your soul has chosen to learn. Um, it's not always binding. It's not something that you're um, limited by. You can always actually drop karma, as I've learned, by changing your relationships and emotions, the ways you relate to people and things. Um, but destiny is like this opposite of this negative karma where destiny is always calling to you, always there, you're always moving toward it, and you'll get there. Um, yeah, you'll get there. It doesn't have to be difficult either. It can be a lot easier if you choose if you really choose and just accept that it can be easier than it will be, and things will start falling into place. Um, Another thing about answering a calling is taking a risk if that's your approach and that's what you do is
Hmm.
well that's your way, then take the risk and you're not alone. There's always spirit guides, always ancestors, spirit animals, spirit allies of all kinds, angels, and other beings around you who you can call on for help, for guidance, for even just asking for a miracle, a sign that this is your path. Um, and then certainly if something happens or shows up, even a small synchronicity, of someone saying the right thing to you or something presenting itself to you, then you follow that. It didn't happen by accident. There really aren't any accidents in this life. Um, Everything is always adjusting to your vibration too, as I've learned. And it's really, we're not against this world that we've chosen to come back to. We are working with it. And
Yeah,
when we get into the driver's seat, put the seatbelt on and turn the key and start driving, when we actually start to show up and do something for ourselves and with the world, even if it's a little thing, even if it's if you want to move your home, pack up half of your things. If you want to go on a trip, um, make a booking online, even if it's like months in advance, and just show the universe that you're going there. Make a little decision, take some action. Um, as you take action, there will be an equal and in accordance reaction
yeah,
uh, in the universe that helps you get there because you're showing the intelligent designer of the universe what you want. And yeah, so that's one way of getting your calling too. Answering it is um, just
you
answer.
have a new boss, the universe.
Yeah,
And that's, I always think of it like I have this old book, um, Ask and It's Given. Have you seen this book?
if I have, it's been a while.
A lot of our watchers probably have seen this book too. And one of the things that's in here is the turning things over to the universal manager. And that's kind of what um, I had thought of when you had said that, Troy.
Yeah. One thing we can talk about that. One thing I want to say too that I've learned in my life is even if you take an action, set an intention, take an action, and do a little thing to try to get to where you're going, I there have been times I've done something, taken an action, and trying to set things up so that by that idea the universe would flow into what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to create and where I'm going and my purpose. But then there were times when I did that my life also just fell apart. Something got in my way and prevented me from doing something like getting sick a few days before I was going to give a talk, or what else? Something else coming up in my life or family that calls to my attention more. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so one thing that I figured out that I've worked on clearing and have learned to clear is my beliefs and who I truly am. And um, yeah, it's this belief layer too that even if you set intentions and take your actions, make your actions, then sometimes there's this some people still have this energy that blocks them. If it's kind of tricky in the subconscious if you're not aware of it. um Maybe it draws the wrong person to you. Some people notice that. Some people notice that some it just seems like the universe is against you, but it's not truly. It's more like you have this energy that's working against where you're going or what you're trying to
Right.
do. And so yeah,
That makes total sense.
that's one thing that has blocked me. And um I think it's easiest to work with a healer uh, on this energy level that really helps you either become more aware of that and clear it, or get into yourself in like a trance
Yeah.
state and clear it. Um, Even a Reiki session isn't always enough just to clear that, unless maybe you have a way of targeting that um, and
That's
fully.
why I teach my quantum shift program is for those that maybe they are really good at doing Reiki, but they want to learn how to do that deeper subconscious reprogramming work. And like you said, that's so true. Sometimes Reiki is not enough. Sometimes it takes a deeper exploration, deeper subconscious motivations. We have to go in and pull it out from the root.
Yeah, yeah, we do. It's all about the core, and the core essence that I found is
Yep.
going. If the our soul and our real deepest truth of who we are is there, and we're working on that and working toward that and integrating with that and accepting that and embodying that. But then we also try to do something else that maybe our old conditioning would be more in alignment with. Um, then those are two energies that are conflicting and they can negate each other, I think, in the universe. And so it's quite tricky. And I think that's also one of the weird rules, if it's a rule, if you could call it that, of this game we're living in. Um, I've heard beings I've been in communication with, and a lot of other people call this reality that we live in a game. And this world is really just like the playing field of that game. And so it's kind of like one of those weird conditions of being completely 100% in alignment and authentic and sincere with what you're doing and what you're saying.
Absolutely.
That's a bit about answering your calling. Yeah, the ego can trip us up too if it's out of balance.
Hmm.
Um, a part of it's just another part of ourselves, part of this what is it called? Ethereal engineering that I've learned. Um, Learning all these little pieces and parts of ourselves and learning how to tweak them. Uh,
Yeah,
I really think that more of this should be taught in elementary school, or at least middle school and high school.
I agree.
But at the same time, I've also come to a kind of belief that um, there's forms of spirituality, especially real, hardcore, and truthful, and um, spirituality, once you actually start embracing it and living it, is easiest and best, I think, for adults, because our brains and bodies and minds are also 100% developed. And it's a bit more difficult when you're a teenager or even a child to grasp any of this and live with it. Um, of course, there's some basic spiritual concepts like just love and connectedness, and even some telepathy children are good at and past life recall, but truly embodying all of that after you've truly worked through your traumas and worked through your conditioning, I think is part of the initiation process of life for adults, and then coming back to your truth,
Agree.
however you do it. I'm not saying there's one way to do it, but yeah, however you go about that. Um, Ultimately, at some point before you die, I think that's what's important.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't have to be boring. It's also important to have fun with life, enjoy yourself, be present, enjoy your time with your spouse and family and pet, and just living life and
Mhm.
finding out your purpose.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about.
Again, it has been quite an honor to be sharing my piece with you. And you can always find me at newbeinghypnosis.com. I'm also on Facebook as Troy J. Bacon. Yeah, I also offer support for experiencers, people who've been through alien contact and paranormal experiences and need some help um, clarifying what they've been through, as well as getting back to the truth of who they are and why they're here. That's I think, end goal of my work that I offer.
Thanks, Troy. And I can be found at dgtwellness.com as well as on Facebook, just my name, Derrick Ivey. And we'll talk to y'all soon.
Okay, bye for now.